Each morning, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood reaches about 8 million children between the ages of 2 and 5. This, of course, is not a new phenomenon. Fred McFeely Rogers has been about his work now for over 40 years. His work is about children, helping them understand themselves, teaching them to accept others for what and who they are, and leading them into the wonderful world of creative thinking. One of my favorite quotes is that of Hodding Carter, who said, "There are only two lasting bequests that we can hope to give our children. One of these is roots, and the other wings." Mr. Rogers has assisted generations of American children in the discovery of their roots, and in doing so, inspired the development of their wings, wings that enable them to fly to new heights of accomplishment during their lives. Mr. Rogers has no doubt been an inspiration to many of you gathered here today. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Rogers to our neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Wow. Bless your hearts. Thank you for that warm welcome. Maybe you'd sing with me. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. Good. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Good for you. Good for you. Boy, what a special day. It is a beautiful day in this neighborhood. I don't know what it's doing outside, but there's certainly a lot of beautiful feelings right here. As I wrote this for you, I thought, I wonder what I'm going to feel like when I see so many of your faces. I never saw you through the television set, of course, but here you've grown up. Oh, bless your hearts. One evening, as I sat at the piano, I began to play a song, almost without thinking. Little by little, the words came to me, and I realized I had known that song for many years. It was called "When You Wish Upon a Star." And it begins by saying, when you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. Well, I remember when I first heard that song many years ago, it was from Pinocchio. I had such a wonderful feeling to think that wishing would make things come true was such a splendid idea to me, and I had lots of wishes. But as a 60-year-old playing that song and thinking those words, it dawned on me how important it was that all of those wishes had not come true. Of course, it was equally important that some of them actually had. and I wondered about the difference. Why didn't I become a concert pianist or a veterinarian? Why didn't I learn shorthand or Japanese or get to be a commercial pilot? Those were all things I had wished for many years ago. In fact, I probably wished more for those things than I ever did for being in television. Anyway, I got to thinking, what makes the difference between wishing and actually realizing our wishes? Lots of things, of course, but the main one, I believe, is whether we link our wishes to our hopes and our hopes to our active striving. Might take months or years for a wish to come true, but it's far more likely to happen when we care so much about it that we'll do all we can to make it happen. At some point in your life, you all must have wished to be graduates of a college or a university. Well, by now you know what it took to make that wish come true, and so do your parents and your teachers and your friends. When I was a freshman in college, I met someone who knew a very famous songwriter. And ever since I was a little boy, I had wanted to meet that songwriter. I was convinced that if I could just get him to hear my songs, I think I had 5 of them then, he would be so impressed with them that he would introduce me to Broadway, and I would be an instant successful composer of show tunes. I was able to get an interview with that man, and I remember so well going to New York and all the way thinking, this is it. I'll probably have to give up college and get an apartment in the city, and my parents will be so proud of me, and before long, my 5 songs will be sung by millions of Broadway showgoers. That's not what happened. The famous composer was very welcoming to me. He asked me to play a couple of those original songs for him, and he listened intently as I played them and sang them as well as I could. When I was finished, he said, "Very nice, Fred. Now, how many songs have you written?" I told him 5, and I had brought them all with me. Then he said something that has become very important to me. He said, "I'd like you to come back after you've written a barrel full, and we'll talk again." Can you imagine how I felt? A barrel full of songs, that would be hundreds of songs. And at that moment, I had only 5. I can still remember the disappointment I felt as I rode all the way back to college. Nevertheless, that man's counsel was more inspired than I realized. It took me years to understand that. But of course, what he knew was that if I really wanted to be a songwriter, I'd have to write songs and not just think about the 5 I'd already written. And so, after the initial disappointment, I got to work. And through the years, one by one, I have written a barrel full of songs. You sang one very well just a little while ago. In fact, now the barrelful's overflowing. And I can tell you that those songs did not write themselves. I wrote them. and the more I wrote, the better the songs became. I wished to be a songwriter, and I attached my work to my wish, and that wish came true. But what about the wishes that don't come true? I remember a very successful woman telling me that one day, all of a sudden, she said to herself, "I'm never going to be a circus clown." It just dawned on her that because she hadn't gone to clown school and had made many other choices, her girlhood wish for becoming a clown wasn't going to come true. She wasn't sad. She was just surprised when she realized her resignation. I'm never going to be a circus clown. I know another woman who remembers the time when she knew that her wish to be married and have children would not be realized. She remembers the struggle of the final resignation, and then she remembers the outcome of that resignation. Enormous energies seemed to be available to her all of a sudden, which she used for the rest of her life in developing uniquely creative work with young parents. All through our lives, there are resignations of wishes. As children, once we learn to walk, we must resign ourselves to not being a baby anymore. If we want to be taken care of and not make any effort to do more and more for ourselves, then we can avoid that resignation and just stay a baby. In fact, you may know some adults who are still babies, even though they're mentally and physically able people. They still want to be served all the time. How sad for them not to have been able to experience the excitement of growing from one part of life to another. I know a young man whose name is Keith. When he was 10 years old, his beloved grandfather became ill. This grandfather had always helped Keith to feel special. They had fished together and camped together and talked about all sorts of things together. And when his grandfather became sick, Keith wanted him to get better. He watched the doctor and helped his grandfather take his pills. His grandfather told him he was good at that. In fact, his grandfather told him he was good at lots of things. That's why when his grandfather died 2 years later, Keith was sad and angry all at once. Nevertheless, his grandfather had loved him enough and was comfortable enough with him that he could talk with Keith about death and how that happens to all living creatures, and that the important thing is how we care for people when they're alive. So the time that Keith was 12 years old, he was sure he wanted to become a doctor. He was first in all of his science courses in high school and was accepted at a college that had a fine pre-med course. To those who knew him well, it was fairly evident that Keith was responding to the loss of his grandfather, but also to the love which helped him mobilize all of his feelings toward constructive resolutions. Next year, Keith will become a doctor. He says he wants to be a family doctor, and my hunch is that he'll be a fine doctor. His wish was translated into purposeful work with the memory of affection grounded in hope. Théard de Chardin writes that an unknown someone scrawled the following words on the bulletin board of that great Notre-Dame Cathedral in Paris. Le monde demain appartiendra à ceux que lui ont apporté la grande espérance. The world tomorrow will belong to those who brought it the greatest hope. I don't know your wishes or your hopes. Nobody but you and the people you care to share them with should know them. Wishes are sometimes grand and far beyond the reality of the present. But other wishes are intimate. They are about simple things, simple private things. I trust that you'll feel good enough about yourself to do all you can to help the best of your wishes come true. And by now, you've discovered that you don't have to do that alone. In fact, no one gets to be a college graduate or any other competent adult without the investment of others in our lives. I often think about all the people who helped me to become who I am. People who have loved me all along the way. In fact, on this extra special day, I'd like to give you a minute, a full minute, to think of those who have believed in you and have helped you to feel that you could realize some of your wishes and hopes. Those who have helped you live your life knowing what is good and real. A minute of silence for all of us to remember those who have cared about us through our lives. People who have made a great difference in our being who we are right now. 1 minute. I'll watch the time. Whomever you've been thinking about, whether they're here or far away or even in heaven, imagine how pleased they'd be to know that you recognize what a difference they've made in your becoming. When you wish upon a star, why, there are whole galaxies that we haven't even discovered yet. Stars way out in space, and stars within ourselves that are patiently waiting to be hitched to the work of our lives, to brighten up our world. I trust that you'll choose your wishes well and do all you can to make the healthiest of them come true in your life. I wanted to be here with you today because I know that many of you grew up with the neighborhood, some as children, some as parents, and I'm very proud of the way you've grown. Some of you have had ordinary, some extraordinary struggles in your years of growing to this special day. And I'd like to give you the words to another song for a commencement present. That song comes from my barrel full of songs, and it's called It's You I Like. It's you I like. It's not the things you wear. It's not the way you do your hair. But it's you I like. The way you are right now, the way down deep inside you, not the things that hide you, not your diplomas. They'll soon just be beside you. But it's you I like. Every part of you, your skin, your eyes, your feelings, whether old or new. I hope that you'll remember, even when you're feeling blue, that it's you I like, it's you yourself, it's you. It's you I like. Congratulations to you all.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.